It's Thursday, December 18th. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Today in the show, we are talking about something that is really important, municipal budgets, folks, because it's a budget season for towns in the three cities in this province. So today, we're taking a few steps back and asking, what's the work that goes into balancing these things? Yeah, I wanted to kind of have a city/medium/small community discussion around budgets because this stuff matters to communities, right? The dollars and cents of services and what gets provided and the decisions around it, it matters to everyone across the province in communities. So joining us today, we've got Mayor Mike Doyle of Harbour, Main Chapel's Cove-Lakeview. It's been a while since we've seen each other. How you doing?
Hey, not too bad, Adam. Yeah, I think last time we actually talked, I think we were down Chapel's Cove Beach there just after the storm. So
yeah, so this would have been, and the storm, we're talking like Snowmageddon,
Yes,
right? So I went out after Snowmageddon. I was a reporter for the morning show, and because the part of the beach got eaten, right?
That's right.
And briefly, where did the conversation go around that? Because it continues to today, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And so after Snowmageddon, we had the hurricane the year right after, and so once again that same road, we have 7 residents on the other side, was washed out. The residents couldn't get there. But the last storm, the biggest challenge with that is it was eroding away the side of the road, and so that's where our water infrastructure is. That's where our sewer infrastructure is. So then that's when it started to get to a critical point, and so it took a lot of lobbying with the government, get stakeholders together. And here we are now, Adam, 6 years later.
Yeah.
And things don't get cheaper, as you can appreciate, over 6 years. We're talking about budgets. Yeah, well, breakwaters don't get cheaper over 6 years, I can assure you that. But the breakwater will be now, it's being installed, and it'll be wrapped up here in another 2 weeks. And so once again, we mitigated that risk there. And
well, congrats on that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lesson in continued pushing and discussing and staying on theme and on topic to get something done.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's once again, it's about talking to the right people at the right levels of government to make sure that once again they understand the risk. And once again, their asset, it's a provincial highway, their asset itself was at risk. And so they had they had some skin in the game, if you will.
There you go. All right. So we got lots to talk about. I'll go to another mayor. Mayor Danny Breen of St. John's is here. How you doing?
Hey, good afternoon, Adam.
Budget planning, new council, right? Not everyone's new, but what was what are the conversations like going into with new folks who just got elected? So they have hopes and dreams and thoughts and plans, and then it's like, here's reality. What was that like this time?
Well, it was very good. Our staff and Deputy Mayor Ellsworth, who's our lead on finance, they spent a lot of time with the new councillors, as did I, and answering questions and explaining different aspects to them. Most of the direction on the budget. We start our budget. We're probably started next year's now. We have an idea of where we're headed. But back around May, we gave direction. The previous council gave direction on the budget to staff, and staff went to. We have been bringing forward documents from there on in, and so a lot of that work was done. So it was really. Getting down to the fine-tuning of the budget, and the new council were very engaged, brought a lot of different perspectives to the table, a lot of discussions. There was changes made, and we move forward.
What's the biggest budget highlight for this year for you?
I think for this year, I think there was the increased money in snow clearing for the fleet. The fleet management review that we did, we're just implementing that. I think if you look at the safety aspects in terms of the fire department with the investments that we're making there, and the other thing, to be able to hold that mill rate where it was is a major achievement, given the cost pressures on the municipalities and on the residents. So it was a very difficult balancing act trying to get there, but we worked hard and got to a good result, I believe.
Yeah, because yesterday on the show we talked about the fall fiscal update for the province, and so unlike the provincial government or unlike the federal government, municipalities can't run deficits, right?
Well, you can't run deficits. You have a cap on the amount of debt servicing costs you can have in your budget. But those two things, there's demands beyond them, and so there's a lot of hard choices that have to be made. And you have to look at a big part of our budget goes to what we call legislative responsibilities. That's the ones that got to be done. And, you got to have clean drinking water. You got to have wastewater treatment. 911 calls got to be answered. The garbage got to be picked up. Snow got to be cleared.
Yeah.
So there's a small part of your budget that you have some latitude on. And that's a real challenge. There's a lot of competition for those dollars.
All right. Thanks for that. And there's lots more to talk about there. Rigel Penman is here, Happy City's head of community partnership. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks for coming in. Tell us a bit, remind folks about Happy City and just kind of the stuff you do and then we'll go into a bit around like budgeting and thoughts around it.
Yeah, for sure. So Happy City is a volunteer-run organization that we're really about municipal development. We want to try and help the city grow in a healthy way that's responsive to the needs of the citizens. And so we're trying to provide a space where people can come together and actually discuss what they want the city to become and what kind of logistical steps we can take to actually get it there, and try to drive more citizen engagement and try to make sure that the government has as much information from citizens at its disposal as possible when they're making those decisions, so that we get the policies that are reflective of the needs.
Yeah. So then, what are some of the things you've been looking at for advocating for that folks would kind of recognize?
In terms of what Happy City advocates for, we are really about general municipal development. So there's a lot of stuff. We want to see transit get better and expand. We want to see the housing situation improve. We want to see more economic development in terms of more diverse industries that young people can get into the city. And so there's really a lot of different goals. And like I said, we try to focus what we're advocating for on any given moment really through the lens of what we hear the most advocacy for coming from the community and from our members. And so we try to kind of direct to whatever seems to be the thing that people need the most at that moment is where we get the most attention. But overall, we want to see St. John's continue to grow, and we do want to see more resources available that all citizens can access, so that all citizens can kind of use St. John's as a place to start their careers and lives and grow and thrive. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Miles Russell is back, a civil engineering technologist, also with the Streets Are for People. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing great.
So first of all, thanks. We did a bit the other week for the This Is Newfoundland and Labrador podcast, which I also host. So folks, if you want to hear about the two new developments in the East End, so for Ballyhaley and also Pleasantville, go find it. It's where you find your podcasts. Give it a listen. Give it a follow. Also leave a 5-star rating if you could. That'd be a Christmas gift to me. I think that's how word gets out about this. Part of this discussion you and I had, though, was, we met in the parking lot near the Legion, right? So here we are, and we're talking with these developments, and you can look in where there are you can look in Pleasantville where the houses are not built yet, right? So just empty, fieldy type of things with some scattered tree or whatever. What happens when you build density for taxes for cities or towns? Why is there such a benefit to have density for a new development for the city's coffers?
Very simply, the city reduces its burden the more people are on a service amount of infrastructure. So you say a kilometer of road in a rural town might have 200 people. Downtown St. John's, that's 9,000. 9,000 people, 9,000 pieces of property. That's a lot more revenue. We know empirically, looking at mathematical analysis of an urban planning lens, suburban areas lose the city money. Lose it in the sense that every suburban house that gets built has an infrastructure burden that cannot make up. It doesn't lose per se, but when Danny's looking at an entire budget, if we keep sprawling, the city continues to lose money. Right now, we're sitting on about 70 years of infrastructure that is at age, and the city cannot afford to fix it. Danny's going to bring up good points that our water system is kind of reaching capacity. Our sanitary system is kind of reaching capacity. Downtown's storm and combined sanitary storm is very expensive every time there's a big storm. It puts a lot of water that shouldn't be there into our wastewater treatment. These things have $100 million budgets, and there's no real way to address that unless we build dense. Things like Southlands will lose the city money. The next phase is a very costly project. Ballyhaley only works if the 8 apartments get built. If you would remove half of them, that now becomes a liability. It's just mathematics on the value of density is very, very high relative to its service burden. I don't want to see skyscrapers everywhere. I'm sure Danny sees that a lot too. But we also need not single detached homes on 25-meter roads. That's a problem.
Well, put it to both the mayors too. Like, so how do you, when you're going to sit down at council and you're getting, I mean, there's lots of projects that will come across, right? From like individual houses that want to get built in smaller communities, sometimes slightly bigger developments, and then here in St. John's, bigger ones, right? A couple thousand homes, apartments, individual homes. So what are your thoughts on what Miles was saying there? And just how do you kind of like look at it all and have discussions and do the planning and thinking about the tax base? Because like that alone seems like an awful lot.
Yeah, and also the developers are the ones that building them, and they're making the investment, and they want to get a return on that investment. So they're going to be building houses that people want to, or building units that people want to be in, because that's where the economic benefit to them is coming from. So finding that balance of having, and you take the Ballyhaley development, which I think is a great opportunity for that area. It certainly meets the density issue and requirement. The services are already there. There's work to be done still on the layout and the input from the community on how that may work. But you're going to have different types of houses in there because we've gone away from what used to be in St. John's was you had a choice. You could have a single unit house or an attached house, and now there's different housing options that people want. But the market drove that. That's what people wanted to have. And then when you get down to Pleasantville, it just happens to be right next to Ballyhaley, and two of those are have some great opportunities. And combined, I think there's a plan 2,700 units between the two. So that's a fairly significant project in the core of a city.
So then when you look at it, are you just like, like Miles was talking about, when you know that there could be like, extra, like that the extra tax base that can bring, is that something that's kind of like, as mayor, you're like, well, this is tempting. This is nice because with all the other things you're trying to do with the city and figure out, just knowing there might be some more money coming in. What's that like?
It's got to be responsible. It's got to be responsible development. It's got to be one that's going to work for people and one that's going to make the city better. So you can get the money and you can maximize the economic return from it. But if that results in a mistake and then you're going to pay for that over and over. So that's why our planners and our engineers and our staff and the very, very robust engagement process that we have to engage with the community goes to work on these things and comes up with developments that are sustainable and responsible and for the betterment of the city and the region.
Right. Mayor Doyle, what about yourself, right? So if you're like for Harbour, Main, Chapels, Cove-Lakeview, when you look at new developments and trying to think about a tax base and figuring stuff out because it's all the dollars and cents of a budget, what is that like?
Yeah, well, once again, a lot different out in our community than Mayor Breen, of course, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are going up. We're just trying to fill in the holes, if you will, right? So from our perspective, once again, we're a rural community. We like our 3/4 acre lots. We like to see the ocean. We like to have that sort of bit of space for us to live in. But
it's a rural living bit, like it's the beauty of living in rural Newfoundland and Labrador is what you have in your community, right? And there's a reason why people want that.
Absolutely. But once again, as a municipality, we have the challenge that when we run a water line, to your point, and I've got 35 lots that are on that water line, but I only have 8 houses, that becomes a very expensive water line. Yeah. And so once again, and even those empty lots, they still have to pay the water service tax, if you will. But that's not the same as having a residence there in that space. So for us, we're averaging around 3 new house builds a year, which is really good for a smaller municipality. But for us, it's really about filling in all the holes as it goes along to now have a sustainable water line that has a regular and consistent income, right? So, but it's a challenge when you're a small municipality. It's once again a whole lot different than St. John's.
Yeah, well, exactly. And this is why I appreciate you both being here, right? Because for a provincial conversation, like now, you could be in Mount Pearl, you could be in Corner Brook, and some of what Mayor Breen's saying, it's like, okay, I can recognize that. And then for everyone else in the province, some of what you're saying, it'll be like, especially for the councillors and the community, the folks involved in community, it's like, yeah, 3 builds a year. Well, we have 2, or we didn't have any last year, but we're hoping for 4 this year, or whatever, right? I mean, it's people will feel they'll connect to what you're saying.
Yeah, and our challenges are the same, though. You talk about sustainable drinking water. That's probably, you and I were talking about a storm as our biggest risk last time. And now really, our council met, and our biggest risk is reliable drinking water. So last year, we take our water from the river, and that river went to its lowest that we've ever seen. And we were 3 days away that our community would have been out of water. So it's you look at Sunnyside, they had a state of emergency put in place because of lack of drinking water. And so our focus when we talk about a budget right now, our number one focus in this budget is how do we get safe, reliable drinking water.
Well, I mean, we were had the Mayor Torbay on, same thing, talking about the issues in Torbay and also how they're trying to. It's a lot more complicated than saying jerry rig, but how they're trying to figure out to get water from a river into the supply to get it for everyone and have it stable. And we were on St. John's had issues too with water. What's the lookout for St. John's, Mary Breen?
Well, we're looking now at what our future needs be, and not only for ourselves but for the region and what the next development may be in terms of the water supply. So there are things that have to be planned out well in advance. They're very expensive. The major project that we have staring at us now is the secondary wastewater treatment plant, which is probably a $400 million project right now.
$400 million.
$400 million. That's just in the beginning. Phase 1 is now being worked on, and one of the parts of phase 1 is to make sure that we've got really good estimates so that we can manage that cost with Class A estimates, because if not, municipalities are responsible for the cost overruns, and that can be very difficult. So the planning stage in these is critical, and choosing the right technology for the operating costs as well is another big part of it. So it's a massive project.
Yeah, it's so much responsibility, right? Because if you mess it up, it's money out, and then
Well, we have very good staff, very good experts, and there's a lot of great consultants and engineers out there with a lot of knowledge that we can tap into.
We've got Triffie Parsons on the line, Town Clerk Manager for Hare Bay. Welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Good. I appreciate you. I really appreciate the follow-up discussion. Last time we were talking to you, it was Climate Week, and we talked about everything from having to move a pump house to wharves being washed away, shoreline being washed away, the expenses around that. Now on the thinking of the budgeting process. How does all that work for you for delivering a budget with these the climate change dents and then just the regular day-to-day for the town?
Well, it makes it a bit more difficult because you got to do a lot of forecasting and take into account all these climate issues. I mean, when we had the storm January 5th last year, we had maybe a half an inch before the water would have penetrated into our pump house. And, of course, electricity and water don't go together, so you have to plan for that. And then there's always water leaks. But for whatever reason, we get more than our share. I think we've had 10 a week now for the last 8 weeks or more. And those are unexpected costs. So you're always thinking, well, if we have these many next year, then we have to have it in the budget for it. And then our truck broke down and has been in St. John's trying to be fixed ever since February, and we get early snowfalls. So, you're looking at how you can compensate for that when that wasn't the cost you were expecting in your budget this year. So you have to deal with it now for upcoming costs and look at what is the best option, whether to get a new truck or, continue to try to fix this one. So there's always a lot of variables. You do the best you can. You got to focus on the things that are most important to your residents and your council and try to do the best you can with it. And, it gets a little bit uncomfortable when people don't understand that tax rates go up, but we just got our chlorine just doubled in costs, went from $4,000 for 4 weeks to $9,000.
Wow. Right. So you're in a community trying to plan things out. Truck breaks down. You've had climate change damage. You're trying to figure out maybe moving the pump house, talking to the provincial government, and then you're looking at the bills, and it's like, oh, and chlorine doubled. Great.
Yes. Nothing gets cheaper.
No. So what's the outlook for Hare Bay and was there a mill rate increase and what's the conversation been for folks to try to understand and to get the message across of what you're dealing with?
Well, last year we had to increase pretty much every tax, and this year we were able to look at where we needed the money the most, and that's actually where we focused on doing the increases so that they didn't have to have such a large increase and we were fortunate that our assessed values went up too. So yes, they're going to see an increase, but it's not the town making the increase.
Okay. Right. And what are the priorities now looking for the next year? Like, what are you focusing on? And what are the worry points on top of, the infrastructure and vehicle repairs?
Well, reliable infrastructure, now we changed up. Instead of doing patchwork when it comes to water leaks, we actually replaced the entire lines so that we know that part is now new and it's taken care of, and you don't have to go back to the same place multiple times, which is one of the things that was happening in the past. And we have put in for looking for monies to relocate the pump house into a more feasible area, which will also give it cleaner and better water quality. They also have looked at maintaining what they have. Before this, it was basically, oh, we got it, okay, it's good. It doesn't work that way. You have to have money laid in there for your maintenance, or you're going to find you can't get it. And then we are looking into purchasing a new vehicle for the coming year. So that'll help because it'll alleviate vehicle maintenance because it'll be under warranty, right? So you gotta balance it out. Is it better, to spend money on repairs, or is it better to get a loan and turn around and then know that you have a warranty that'll take you for the next 5 years?
Right. Lots of balancing. A constant balancing act. Triffie Parsons, thanks for coming back on the show, and Merry Christmas to you and everyone in Hare Bay.
And Merry Christmas to you as well and everyone else.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Triffie Parsons there, Town Clerk Manager, Hare Bay. So any thoughts in the studio about, what Triffie was saying here? There's a point, I think the chlorine bit, everyone was nodding their heads on expenses. Mayor Breen, what also the cost of salt,
Yeah, salt has increased significantly over the past number of years, and that's one of those products like chlorine that you just can't say, well, we're not going to put down as
we're not
much
salting the
salt,
roads this year,
or we're not going to use chlorine.
No, I saw the Metrobus could, before salting the other day, so where I'm down off of Forest Road, Metrobus couldn't get up the hill because, it wasn't salted yet. And, an hour later it was, and it could. But, these are, important things.
Yeah, but these are the core services. These are the services that people, that we need, people for safety reasons, for people to be able to continue to move around, that have to be done. And when, there's a water main break, you got to have a crew that's ready to go out and get the water main break under control as soon as possible. These are the things that have to be done in a municipality, and the cost of all those things is increasing.
Miles, Rigel, any thoughts from you guys?
I think especially when we're looking at an increasingly unstable geopolitical global situation where we where we have those supply chains that are reliant on, or we have essential things that are reliant on international supply chains, we should kind of probably be building our economy to plan for those system shocks to be getting worse, not better, in the foreseeable future. And so, I think while with certain large scale production stuff, that's really hard to do to the extent we can. I think trying to localize more of our economy, trying to support more local agriculture, local business that isn't as reliant on those big international supply chains. Again, hard to do with road salt or chassis for fire trucks, but the extent to which we can start moving in that is one way in which I think we can start structuring our policies and politics that'll help protect us from more of that in the future.
Miles, we were talking about fire trucks before the show started, right? And not just because we think they're cool, for where we can get them from.
Yeah, North American standards are very different from the rest of the world. Everything we have is oversized. It's heavy. way heavier than it needs to be, way larger than it needs to be. We could look. Norway has windy, snowy mountain roads. Their trucks are half the size of ours and twice as powerful.
So does northern Japan, and I think I could put a Japanese fire truck in my pocket.
Yep.
Right.
And these are things that are outside the scope of, Mayor Breen or even the provincial government.
No, of course.
That's a national thing.
Yeah.
But if we don't start looking at that, that's ways to save money. And, if you're trying to forecast a budget and, every year St. John's puts out a forecast for what they think fuel will be, it's usually very higher because they want to be safe, because that's a budget that you definitely cannot have exceed. If they think fuel right now is $1.30 a liter diesel, they're going to put $1.70. If it becomes $2, we're in trouble. So there's a lot of things you can plan for. There's not much you can do on that side other than lobby federally.
Well, and we are in this time of looking at where we get stuff from, right? Like from everything from fighter jets to, road salt and everything else, right? Now, I don't think there's a budget for fighter jets with the city of St. John's, but, hey, who knows what the future will bring. Not yet. Hopefully, we don't get to there. Mayor Doyle, anything from you on just like the thoughts of what Triffie Parsons was saying? Because I think a lot of it would be familiar.
Oh, absolutely. I hear people throw around numbers like $1 million. Well, that's our entire budget in Harbour, Maine. So my jaw, get a little tight there a couple times. Yeah, that's our whole budget. So when something like a water line goes, it's critical to think about. And just recently, we just had to get a new medical unit in our municipality because we're seeing 70% of our calls are medical calls. And so you don't think much about that, but when you have to roll out a big pumper go to do a medical call, that gets really expensive, right? And so once again, as a small municipality, we're looking at the hundreds. We're looking at the $20 that we can save here and there. So a lot different. And we talked about water. So we got to talk about working regionally. And Adam, I'm a regional kind of guy here. So we talked a few times about that. And so if you look at Avondale, they've got a water treatment facility, a multi-million-dollar water treatment facility that was built for the region 15 years ago, and we never plugged anybody into it. They're using 1/16 of its potential. We have a water problem. And so Mayor Foote of Avondale, now him and I are starting that conversation to say, let's start looking outside of ourselves here. There's assets out there. Let's partner together. Once again, now all of a sudden, Avondale has got a much smaller budget. They're about a $500,000 budget. Now all of a sudden, they have new revenue. We have reliable water. Now, even our fire services. So we had to buy a portable pump because we know our water isn't reliable, which means our fire hydrants aren't reliable, which means our residents are at risk. So we can't afford to do a $1 million water project to connect to Lee's Pond, but we can afford to get a $10,000 portable water pump that we can throw in any pond around us. And so that's the kind of thinking that you do at a smaller municipal level. And so last year we got the portable pump to throw in the ponds when we need it because we used a swimming pool to fight a fire last year. That's the kind of stuff that you got to do. This year we're looking at now setting up and staging areas so they can put that portable pump in and walk out there, and so they can do it safely, efficiently, and effectively, and make sure that water pump doesn't plug up. Once again, small asset, but you have to maintain it, make sure it's safe, because if that goes down, we just lost Plan B. Well, we're working on Plan A, is get a safe, reliable water system.
How did the swimming pool thing work for the...
Yeah, so once again, good on the firefighters. And I'm a member of the local fire department, but our fire chief, all of a sudden the fire hydrant lost pressure, and they were stuck there with the water. And he said, right there, just throw the suction into that pool, and let's keep at this. And so it was the swimming pool. But that's, for municipality, understand that's a liability that we're very concerned about. So when you talk about the risks that we think about each year, this year, we're proud to say, and you heard it here first on CBC, is that we've got our 9th consecutive tax budget without a tax increase. And so that's not easy to do while you're faced with all these increased costs coming at us every year, our salt, our sand. And I think Mayor Breen said it best. We know what it's like to be a resident. Small municipalities, we know we got water, we got gasoline. We got to clean our driveways. They're just a lot longer driveways. Yeah. Right? We got to turn the lights on. So we have the same costs that any residence has, and we have to manage our budget, just like you manage your budget at the house.
Totally. And for the smaller municipalities, whenever I talk to councillors, it seems like councils, there's always a couple firefighters on the council. It's like, I'm the mayor, I'm a firefighter, and I'm also, the mail person, and I play Santa Claus for part of the year too. Like, there's so many.
I was Santa Claus for a while.
I knew it. All right, let's go. We've got Connie Reid on the line, president of the Professional Municipal Administrators and also town manager of Reidville. Connie, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Good. Doing great. Thanks for coming on the program, and nice talking to you again. Remind folks about what Professional Municipal Administrator, just how important you people are for the province and the running of municipalities.
Well, we are an organization, and we focus all our attention on, of course, the administrative staff. Of course, we're professional municipal administrators, and we have over 200 communities involved, and we provide a lot of training, help with whatever they may need. We're growing in leaps and bounds. This year, we had the highest number for our fall forum, is a training event that we have in the fall. So we're growing and we're helping, and we are actually in the process now of creating a new training program. So we're looking really forward to that. It's very exciting. So if anyone needs any help, we're here.
So what type of training is in this program?
Well, there'll be all types of training. So you're looking at budget, you're looking at anything financial, really, some municipal law. There'll be all facets of administrative work will be in this training. Right now, we're just at the first stage of starting to see what it's going to look like. So we're very excited.
Yeah, well, why? I can picture why it's important, but why is this training so important for rural communities, given perhaps council size or staff size or that type of a thing?
Okay, so most rural communities only have one or two people in the office, which makes our role very stressful. And as an administrator, you wear many hats. I mean, we need financial management, HR, legislation, public communication. You're doing grant applications. You got to give your council support, problem solving. So all of these things are left to one or two people, which is very difficult. So, and as an administrator in municipal, there's really no course that you can take. So this training will hopefully bridge that gap. And we're also looking at an onboarding training for new administrators coming in, because we tend to lose a lot of people. Seems like retention is a big thing, and that's due to, of course, wages. We know that. And for small towns, budgets, wages, it's a big thing. But we have to ensure that people are aware that the work that administrators do, we absolutely need to keep these people as they are trained. So we need to ensure that a budget line for wages is on your budget. It has to be a good line on your budget.
And the last question for you, what's the push or the educating process like to get folks to be proactive with planning as opposed to sometimes reactive?
Well, it's very difficult when you're in a small town. Your budget has to be very practical.
Yeah.
We have very, very little room for error. We got to focus on maintaining our essential services, but then when you have an emergency or something comes along, then we have to ensure that we have some kind of contingency fund, even if it's small for towns. And if we have to increase taxes, we have to make sure that we are transparent and be honest, clear, and factual to our residents as to, service levels, infrastructure needs. Everybody knows that infrastructure in Newfoundland now is it's old. And we're getting some, feedback from people saying, where are we getting this money? So, if you have to increase taxes slightly to start a contingency fund for these emergency repairs, you have to maintain your essential services, your water, your sewer, your roads, snow clearing, waste collection. I mean, those have to be big issues, and we have to ensure that we can handle that.
All right. Connie Reid, thank you again for the chat, for coming on the show. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Sorry. Connie Reid, they're president of Professional Municipal Administrators and town manager of Reidville. So, look, there's water, sewage, salt, chlorine, all these expenses we talked about, but none of those things are fun. When I was thinking of running the other day up around, I mean, some people might find them fun. I don't. When I was running the other day up around Kenny's Pond here in St. John's, and it's like there's a paved path, there's lights. I think it's going to be plowed, but that also costs money, right? So Mayor Breen, and then I'll go to the rest of you folks. How do you kind of plan for the joie de vivre stuff in a city, right? Community centers, paths, like infrastructure, that type of stuff, when like the cost of chlorine doubles and salt's more expensive than it's ever been before, and fire trucks are breaking down, and you name it.
Well, by creating efficiencies in your operating budget, you can get more money put into your capital, and that's really where you want to try to get your majority your money, but is where you want to get and make sure that you're maintaining a good capital budget, and then taking advantage of the cost sharing opportunities that come from the federal and provincial governments. And the federal government, with use of the shared use path, was particularly a good cost sharing program that came from the federal government that we're able to leverage more value from that. So that meant that we were doing that project at this stage, where if we had to do it on our own, it would be a long ways down the road.
Yeah.
But because most of the federal government programs have specific areas that they're targeting. So, with that way, we can make some of our needs fit those. And our asset management people and our staff, they look at the best programs that are available, how we get the most value from that. For example, the Muse Centre we built from our gas tax revenues from the federal government. So during COVID, the federal government doubled the gas tax to municipalities across the country. So we took all our gas tax money for a couple of years and put it right into the Muse Centre. So we don't have any debt servicing costs on that right now.
And then you didn't take control of it till it was everything was ironed out.
Right. But what happens is our financial people look at that and they determine the best route to take with our capital money to get the maximum benefit from it.
Yeah. Miles, any thoughts just around whether it was Connie Reid or just what we're talking about with Mayor Breen?
Well, to extend on, credit where credit is due, most municipalities are very tied into their fixed and general operation budgets, but not necessarily long-term planning. So something like, our highway getting built. Towns like CBS they get kind of a free pass from the provincial government because the provincial government maintains those main highways. They snow clear them for them. And all the town needs to do is operate a small piece. But those roads are very expensive. So when we're looking at infrastructure, when you're planning out a new development, what happens now? Danny mentioned the market kind of drives housing. Yes and no. It's set up by the way the city's planned. I bring that up because what happens now, as we talked about on the podcast, a developer will build 100% of the infrastructure and pass it to the city. But the maintenance of that is not factored into the cost of the development. Otherwise, there would be no single detached homes, or the taxes for those would be 15 mil rate.
Yeah.
Those things are not serviceable. That's why I push so much towards people to realize the cost of density. Same thing with Harbour, Maine and Deer Lake in the smaller towns. When you put infrastructure in the ground, the developer pays for 100% of that cost, and the municipality never bears it until 70 years comes up and the water mains are breaking. I mean, St. John's at the point now where last time I chatted to engineering and planning, there's essentially a water main break every day in St. John's. Now, that's not Harbour, Maine per se, but there's also 49,000 structures here that need servicing. So we're at a hit right now where water mains are constantly breaking. And that's a service cost that the city can't really plan for because it was never set up that way. So the city and other municipalities have an opportunity to really look at the infrastructure cost and how to budget that for the long term. And it's not sexy. It's not fun. People don't like to talk about maintenance, but it's super critical to look at that. And that's why the work that me and others in Streets of Our People, we focus on this because it's not done in Newfoundland and Labrador. There's one advocacy group in Halifax that does this. Then the next nearest group is Montreal. No one looks at the nitty-gritty mathematics of all these costs. Municipalities don't do it. The provincial government doesn't do it. Engineering firms don't care. So it's important And this is what we want to illuminate, that this is why I push for density and things like transit corridors. Transit corridors all across North America are extremely valuable because car infrastructure costs money, a lot of money. And people want to drive. I don't want to see no cars, but I certainly want to see options. But yeah, this is all part of like a long-term planning that needs to be looked at from the start.
We'll go to the phones again. Mayor Jordan Brown of Labrador City is on the line. Hello, sir.
Hello, thanks for having me on this afternoon.
Congrats on becoming mayor for Labrador City. Question now: your first budget. What were the thoughts around what you had to focus on and what you had to kind of perhaps take the foot off the gas with?
Well, like right now we were elected in October, and the first thing we're into is budget planning. So we're only just in the seats, and we have to figure out now for the next year of our community. And it's interesting. One of your guests there was talking about infrastructure in the ground, and after 70 years things start to break. Well, next year is Labrador City's 65th birthday, and one of the things that we're seeing now is a lot of replacement, a lot of infrastructure that needs to be updated. We're having We've been, last couple of years, the municipality has been working on infrastructure upgrades and replacement. A couple streets last year in our one of our subdivisions just got completely redone. New storm, new water, new sewer, and new hardtop. And we're also planning on and one thing on our budget now is we're looking at developing a new street to help promote development, because that's the problem that we're facing here in Labrador West right now, is encouraging housing development in a town that is housing issues. We're not seeing any development or anything like that. So, we're talking about putting water, sewer, storm in the ground. And just to even do that, between the engineering and the cost, it's a multi-year project that we're starting engineering now in January. And this is things that we're budgeting for. But at the same time, we had a large mill rate increase last year. And so this year we decided that we would maintain and look at things from that point of view. But we have a lot of infrastructure that needs to be worked on. We have a lot of development that we want to do. So it's a lot of long-term thought process.
So then what's it like going from MHA to being mayor and then having this different long-term thought process and now getting back in touch with MHA former colleagues being like, hey, remember me? Now I'm mayor and we've got these issues.
It's an interesting conversation because I know I've met with some of my former, opposition colleagues and are now on government side saying, I have a seniors project that we're working on as a municipality that we need funding and we need resourcing for. I have a new street that we want to develop to try to encourage housing development in this region. I have aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced. I have, a lot of things that need to be looked at, and I only have so many dollars to go around.
Yeah. Was that, before I let you go, how helpful was your experience as MHA to move into this position of just knowing those workings of, granted in opposition, but and as a third party, but knowing those workings of government and then seeing things on the front lines as a mayor?
It is a help because I know who to contact and where different things are found within the government to try to move forward. I would say it, as a large municipality, and I guess quote unquote for this province's size, an urban municipality, we have a lot more resources. But I feel for my colleagues in smaller rural municipalities that don't have the same resources, don't have the same staffing, they don't have the same places to draw from. And trying to find, these puzzle pieces to try to put together to do something in their community. I really feel for them because I think it's a lot harder struggle for these smaller communities to find resources, to find things that help move things forward because I come from a privileged place of being in Labrador City, but, my colleagues in smaller communities, I really think it's we have to have a bigger conversation about how we help smaller communities. Because if not, they're just going to stay on the same plane and not be able to achieve the projects that they should be doing.
Mayor Jordan Brown of Labrador City, thank you for coming back on the program and for the update, and stay in touch, please.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care. Bye, my friends.
Cheers. All right, Jordan Brown there. Yeah, so it goes from MHA to mayor, and talking about those issues. For the two mayors here, any thoughts, Mayor Doyle, Mayor Breen? Yeah.
So one of the things, and just back to Miles' point as well, it's okay for major centres like St. John's and bigger communities to have asset managed. We can have asset management systems and asset managers that are doing the work of forming the priority list that you have, because making sure that one project is done in the right sequence with the other ones is also a big part of it. But for smaller municipalities, it's a real challenge. Federation of Canadian Municipalities does provide asset management programs for smaller municipalities to help them develop their asset management. But back to Mike's comment earlier, regional approaches to this is so important. If you look at the Northeast Avalon with St. John's, Mount Pearl and Paradise, we share a fire department, water, wastewater, and landfill serves in St. John's serves right out to Clarenville. So we are doing a fair amount of regionalization, but we need to do more, especially when it comes to these regional services.
Yeah, I mean, it's about being smarter and spreading things over for everyone, right? Mayor Doyle, any thoughts?
Yeah, no. Thanks for the shout out for smaller municipalities from Labrador for sure. Yeah, he understands it well, and it's about thinking creatively, because if you look at our Spirit Park that we just did, and that's our recreation park, is that as a municipality we had to take a look at that, and we looked at the big cost of that project was really the consultant that would be doing the project. We already had the plan, we paid for that the year before, and so our staff, we talked to them, and the staff said, maybe we can do that. Like, we did that would give us another $20,000 that we could get another swing set, we can put another walking trail in, we could use the money for that. And so the staff literally took on that consulting. Not so sure they would do that again. But hey, at the end of the day, we have just a beautiful park. But in small municipalities, once again, we're chasing $5 bills here. We're chasing $20 bills. And so you really look at things through a very critical lens. And it's about partnerships. And so it's really reaching out to your neighbors and seeing what we can do. We're going to get back into that regionalization discussion again in the new year. We've always wanted to talk to Holyrood, and it sounds like maybe Holyrood wants to talk to us now again. So good things there that I think there's a lot of things that we can share, because those smaller municipalities, either we survive together or we divided, we will fall together.
Well, when we look at the demographics of this place, right, especially in rural areas of the graying Newfoundland and Labrador, which is fantastic, right? My parents, my family, they're all in rural areas, right? I'm here in town. But you wonder, well, what's the future going to be if folks aren't working together?
Yeah, and interesting enough, so we had a few residents move to our community, I guess it would have been last year before, and one of them specifically said they moved to our community because they had seen us on CBC talking about regionalization, and said any community that wants to work with other communities to control the cost of living, that's a community where I want to live. And that was specifically the reason that they moved there.
And I mean, getting that great CBC information, it's just such a thing. As we still have a little bit of time left, but guys, I want to just, Roger, just any thoughts on just any of the discussion that we've been just having, or a look ahead for what Happy City's thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of discussion, about the one point was made earlier about how there needs to be room in budgets to maintain that institutional knowledge, and there needs to be staffing available. And then, you brought up the point earlier about how do you sort of balance the interest for these joie de vivre projects, like getting the paths cleared. And then Miles has brought up the point about how do we talk to people about maintenance and the necessary costs there. And I do think a lot of these things can be kind of talked about more effectively if we understand them as a balance between a cost, but also creating jobs, and we're investing in people. And a lot of the time, like when you talk about how are we going to keep these paths cleared, that's going to cost money. Well, yeah, but we're paying people to clear those paths, and then the result is you have a more connected city that people can get around more easily. People are, you have a healthier community.
Yes, social determinants of health type stuff too, right?
Exactly, 100%. And so, I think that, in terms of where we look and how we move forward, I think that, and we had a great example, when Mike says that they were able to, because they had good staff on hand, they were able to eliminate a $20,000 consultancy cost and just do it themselves. And so, I think, if anything, when we look at going forward in these austere times, we should try to, focus on, we want to keep developing, and we don't want to give up any of those projects or ambition. and we should recognize that if the way we're going after that is by paying people to do good work, then that's still really a worthwhile investment.
Yeah. Miles, any other thoughts?
Yeah, something that both of the mayors in this room have mentioned, and we talked about with Jordan and them, regionalization isn't just simply towns becoming one town. Danny mentioned it's not, and it's also, like, credit to Danny, it's also Portugal St. Philip's water system is St. John's regionally managed. Same with CBS. Fire systems are all the way up to Portugal St. Philip's, out to Paradise. We also have regional transit. All of these things are not well managed, but they could be better managed. Say a thing like a consultant. A consultant on a single budget is very expensive, and just on the very short of it, if 20 towns got together and said, we'd like to hire a single planner for all of us, that makes way more sense if you get to that 10,000 person threshold, your Grand Falls, Gander, Lab City size. More towns need to be doing that. The small towns need to work together, else they're going to get fleeced on every little contractor bill. And I tell you what, those contractors and consultants, I'm in that world. We look at every phrase. And if there's no liquidated damages, that's stuff to watch out for. These kind of contracts got to be looked over. Way easier if a town can have that on the budget and they control it themselves. I think that's a really good system to have. And regionalization, regional planning works. It's a good system.
Yeah. Mayor Breen, any final thoughts from you today? Just like the outlook for the city, and in this time of building, right? We started talking about developments, but how do you bring in more? How do you build more in this city when time of a housing crisis? There's lots of conversation around it.
Well, we've taken steps in terms of the regulations around encouraging subsidiary apartments, backyard suites, and creating more density in these locations. And that's you do that during your planning. We're going to be launching our electronic permitting system in either the end of the first quarter or early in the second quarter this year. So that will speed up the approvals and the building portion of it. And we continue to work on how we can get through the planning process to be able to turn these developments over and get them moving through the system much faster. But at the same time, remembering that these issues and these developments all are very sensitive to the public. The public takes great pride in their communities, and they want to have input into those things. So we have to have those robust planning discussions as well. But I think that we're seeing now more interest in creating more housing. There's a lot more interest from developers, and as Miles said, we have to make sure that that's good development that has the proper infrastructure in place, so that the city or the municipality is not going back too early to have to replace or improve the infrastructure that's there.
Mayor Doyle, any final thoughts from you today? Just the outlook for your community?
Yeah, no, things are looking good, and I'd be amiss if I didn't give a shout out to volunteers. Yeah. I'll tell you, it is the volunteers in our community that get things done, or whether it's our recreation committee, our Harbour development committee, or the folks that just come around and say, how can I chip in? Snowboarding, a good one, right? Everybody had their side-by-side quad out. Everybody was there to help everybody, but they're day-to-day out there fundraising for park equipment and stuff. And so for small municipalities, those volunteers, they're like part of the staff.
Yeah.
And so you really got to make sure you give a shout-out to volunteers, because they're what makes communities what they are. So.
All right. And what's on in the final 30 seconds for Happy City? What do you guys got coming up? Any events? Anything's planned?
We are going to get back into hosting our Jane's Walks around the city.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, that's kind of one of our main flagships things that we're proud of, because it helps people get around, helps people see what's in the city, and, helps kind of inspire that civic pride and help people know what's there to be proud of. So, yeah, we're really excited for that.
Great. Miles, what else are you watching now? Of the things you watch? Yeah.
Total municipality of the Northeast Avalon tax assessment per meter per unit will be coming in the new year. We'll be talking, Danny.
Oh, and quickly, 15 seconds. What's a mill rate? How does that work?
Mill rate?
Yeah.
Mill rate's just simply the value versus, it's just a tax application. It's a value, a hard value of the assessment. Mill rate is about 1,000%, it's 100.
Okay. All right. I think that got us there. I promised I'd have the definition, so I stuck it in towards the end. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for this chat. That is it for the show today. For The Signal, get in touch with us if you've got thoughts. The Signal at cbc.ca. Tomorrow, look, we are... as the year is ending and the holidays are just around the corner, a lot of us are going to be spending time watching television and movies and streaming. So we're talking about that tomorrow. Your holiday viewing, the best films and TV shows of the year. I've got a pop culture panel coming by. Get in touch with us with what movies or TV shows spoke to you this year. That's tomorrow. Don't miss it. Cheers.